Morning, everyone. I love that song, and I hope you do too. And as I look over here at the Laughing Jesus, I'm reminded a teacher that I've turned to in his writings over the years, Thich Nhat Hanh, says, and it's okay to smile. It's okay to smile, and it's okay to have some laughter, even if it's not COVID-19 anymore when this video was made, but it certainly is an experience of life on the planet where we often don't know what to do, right? So healing. Today we're going to be sharing around healing and the season for nonviolence. And I have been a person that has been holding up the word healing a fair amount wherever I share, and I get to share here once a month. It appears it's once a month, so what a delight to be with all of you. And healing is a topic unto itself. It's a practice. It's a reality. So healing is coming from a root word which means to mend or bring together. So if you have a broken leg, you know that the bones will mend together, right? So healing means mending. What has been apart comes together. It's a very simplistic way of thinking about healing. And because we live in a time where we can often feel so separate, right, from each other or from knowing what to do, or even a sense of a higher power that can assist us to overcome whatever is ours to overcome. So healing is that mending that brings us back together with a oneness. And in unity, for all these many years, we've been offering this idea of the principle of oneness. It's always active. Everything in creation is at work with a oneness, even though it can appear to be separate pieces. Well, the season for nonviolence, let me get on to talking about that. The season for nonviolence was created a number of years ago by the man Arun Gandhi and his wife Sadhana. Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, the great leader in India that worked to address impoverishment and the caste system, to be able to address something that was so unjust in his country of India where he had been born. He started that work, though, in South Africa when he was not allowed to stay on a train because of the fact that he was Indian. And so his work continued on, and it had a profound, of course, influence, not so much on the caste system that continues to be addressed in India, but impoverishment, for sure, being able to work together with nonviolence is the great effect of Gandhi. So for us, as we explore the season for nonviolence, let me first find out how many of you have never heard of the season for nonviolence. Raise your hand. Okay. And then we have some friends online, and I won't probably get to know whether you have or you have not, but I want to welcome you and think of you because together we are not alone. There are people all across the United States, into Canada, and beyond this country that have been studying this nonviolence. And it's in school systems as a practice. There's curriculum that's been written for children, curriculum for parents, curriculum that has been brought into businesses. This is something that has been growing for quite some time, and I'm so grateful for it. So Arun Gandhi, I got to meet him. Isn't that amazing? And I got to meet him because, well, I had said yes to some guidance that it was for me to move on from a very precious community in 2018, the Upland Hills School community out here in Oxford where I was teaching. And because I had said yes to that guidance, I went with my friend who invited me to the Parliament of World Religions that was held in Toronto. That parliament has only been convened 7 times since the late 1800s, and the first time it was convened, the co-founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, attended. It was in Chicago. And it brought together faith leaders from all the world's faith traditions, and even that which might not even be considered a faith tradition, not faith in a deity or in unity, faith in God as the oneness principle, but it included Buddhists, it included Native American leaders, just as it did in 2018. I got to walk with Arun Gandhi, very gentle man. By then, his wife had made her transition. And he was an encourager just by his presence. I'm sure Gandhi, his grandfather, was the same. Such a gentle presence. And you know, the saying, you live the change you want to see in the world, you've heard that probably. That was actually spoken by Arun Gandhi. And it was spoken as he was speaking in London, and he was asked to synthesize what he believed his grandfather's message really was. And Arun, the grandson, says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And it goes around the world quickly. And it is attributed then to Mahatma Gandhi, who had a sign actually that his grandson had seen in the very location that was set up in Bombay when Gandhi when he wasn't in jail, and he was in jail many, many years, as was his wife, in jail, Katsurbi, because of their efforts, all done in nonviolence, but it was a threat to the system and the governance of that time. But in Mahatma Gandhi's office in Bombay, where he would go to meet with the leaders, was a sign, be the change. And this is what his grandson had seen and associated with his grandfather. But more than that, be the change you wish to see in the world. Right? So I get to be here with you and share the journey, and I want you to know that in this last year, 2024, I said yes to guidance again. And I also work for what I call nonviolence. So that the work and the new story in our time that's been growing, this verbiage, the new story, this verbiage that really we could say is called The Great Work by Thomas Berry, who said he was less a theologian and more a geologian, that he was holding up the natural world and the care for creation. But this story, this new story that we are creating together, is hand in hand with what is called nonviolence. So that nonviolence is necessary for the new story to occur. And the new story draws out of us, and let me read now the words of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, the words that really help us understand what it is that nonviolence is, the news story. Mahatma Gandhi said, nonviolence is an active force of the highest order. It is soul force, or the power of Godhead within us. Imperfect man cannot grasp the whole of that essence. He would not be able to bear its full blaze, but even an infinitesimal fraction of it, when it becomes active within us, can work wonders. Wow. Nonviolence, peace, peacemaking. I think of it today as no harm. This is the season of no harm. Will you join me in a season of no harm? The season is for 64 days. It began on January 30th. It will end on April 4th, I believe it is. And these are two dates that mark the anniversary assassinations of both Mahatma Gandhi in January and then Martin Luther King in April. So Arun and his wife said, all right, let's use these two individuals' teachings to help constantly in our lives practice nonviolence, no harm. Will you join me in a season of no harm?
Yes.
Good. Now let's explore what that means, because I, like you, am living my life, and there are many frustrating things that happen in life. And I had one of those occur this week, and I got up in the morning and I had my prayer and reflection time and my meditation, and it was a great one. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't bailing out on it. I wasn't fighting it. I mean, I was really able to sustain, just stay in with it. Sometimes that's what we do in consciousness. All we're doing is just asking ourselves is to stay in a concentrated awareness that there's a power greater than ourselves. Call that God, call it Jehovah, call it any name you want, but know that there is a power greater than yourself. And that's a good thing, because if I was left to rule my life, we would be in a lot of problems. And I can share that example on that day. So I finish all of that, and I get a text. I get a text from the employee of the Unity region, which is 8 states. So I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the Great Lakes Unity region. If you're new to Unity, Unity is a worldwide movement. It's been around for over 130 years. And we organize ourselves to support ministries like this through regions. Okay? So I serve on that board. And I get this text from one of the employees who has just tried to use her new debit card to do the work of creating youth and teen events. She wants to pay the bill to hold the space, which has been delayed for a month because there was a fraudulent charge that was found in the account. Anybody ever have that happen? It's like a little storm. All of a sudden you're dealing with somebody's in your account, you're trying to stop everything, cancel credit cards. It's like a storm, isn't it? Well, I get a text, she's in a storm. She's in a storm because she's not even able to use the new card. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one right now that can get into that system. So I go into the whole banking system for the region, and now I'm in a storm because I can't get in. So I call a number. You ever have this happen too? It all should work. Shouldn't it work? Aren't those people doing their best to make it work? They are. So I call, and I finally, you wait online, you wait, you do the dishes, you have a cup of tea, whatever it is. You just do things. But I'm building the storm because things aren't happening as fast as I want them to happen. You ever have that happen? Of course, we're humans. We like it now, when we want it, how we want it, where we want it, right? Okay, so then the person answers, and she says, well, you're not on the account. I said, you are kidding me. I just spent 3 hours for the second time over here at the bank getting everything in place. You're kidding me. So I'm really in a storm now. But the thing is, in that storm of frustration and emotion, I realized I was in a storm. I could hear myself, and my words were getting louder. I could notice that the storm was shaking my boat, and I'm talking with a live human being, and I become aware. She's going to think I'm upset with her, and I'm not upset with her. I'm upset with that bank. I'm upset with that bank that it can somehow do a world global work, but it can't get me into the account when I'm the owner of the account for the region. So I finally calm down a little, and I say to her, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset with you. I'm upset with this bank. And so we ended the call because I said, I don't think you can do anything more for me, and it's going to take another visit to this bank. And I get off the call, and then I realize all those texts that were going on when I was on wait, where everybody on the team, the other employee, the treasurer, everybody's like trying to work together to figure it out. Everybody's in the storm. You have a storm like that with your family ever? Yeah. So you know what this is like. And I think to myself in that moment, I ask myself, what can I share with them? So I wrote them a text. And I said, let's take some deep breaths today. And remember that this insanity does not have to steal our serenity, nor the beauty that is very present in our life. I felt after that combination of working with other people is what was helping me to become conscious again, was helping me to remember the practices that could restore me to sanity, was helping me put my spiritual program into practice with the thought of others. Do no harm. Do no harm. It came through in those moments where I realized I was talking to an employee, and it wasn't her fault. She was just doing her best. She needed to hold the line right there. It didn't say I was on the account. There was no way she was going to let me in that account. She was doing her job. I want you to hear that power that Mahatma Gandhi or Jesus or the different ones throughout the world's spiritual traditions and histories that have said to us, it is within us, that it is a power and a potency like nothing else. The great teacher Jesus, who was a teacher of nonviolence, said it's like a seed. The kingdom of heaven, the God within, is like a seed. It's tiny. But given some fertile soil, it can grow, can't it? Isn't it interesting? Arun said, actually not Arun, but the author of the book, Michael Nagler, that I want you to know about. And you were all given a sheet of paper when you came in, and this name of this book is on it. So Michael Nagler has written the book, The Third Harmony, Nonviolence and the New Story of Human Nature. And he says that Gandhi himself wrote, I love storms. And when he wrote that, it was a little bit of evidence of what had happened in the man Mahatma Gandhi. That little seed had become the ability to love storms. Most of us would not say that we love storms, especially not the kind with bank systems, right? Especially not the kind with families when you're getting reamed out for just having a smile or whatever. We are not very fond of storms, we humans, but grateful am I that there have been those in my midst that have been models to be able to lean into a storm. This is what we want to become, is that force that in the midst of storms, all around us. Tune into the news today and you will see that there is a storm happening on this planet. And it looks scary and it will look sad. And storms of emotions will come up just looking at the news as we feel powerless, as we feel out of control. But there are those in our midst that are facing into storms. And we want to know how to do that in our family systems, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our churches. I would beg to question that this ministry has had its own storm. This ministry is going through a time of change and transition, and has been since its founding minister, Reverend Donna, decided to retire. Oh my gosh. You get to do those things, ministers get to do those things. I call it rewirement because you're just never done. But, God's not done with you. You can call it retirement, but God's not done with you. You can call it, I'm not working anymore, but God's not done working as you. So we just wake up every day and we go about doing whatever that is that's revealed for us to do. So anyway, this storm in this ministry is one that I encourage each of you in a time of change to learn the way of leaning into it, to learn to love it. And why would we possibly do that? Let me read to you why we might possibly do that. These again come from Michael Nagler's book. And in this book he talks about, as I mentioned, Gandhi loving the storms. But when we lean into these storms, when we are able to lean into them, we are able to garner the energy, the actual energy that's been stirred up. I'm not going to find that page in that book real quickly, but think about it. Think about what has happened in California with the fires. Did that not stir up the energy of people to have compassion and to reach to each other? Did you feel it within yourself? How about the hurricanes down in Florida, North Carolina? Did it not stir up humanity, even outside of the United States, to have compassion? Yes. So there's something about these storms that is stirring up energy, that's moving energy that possibly has been asleep to us. And the beautiful story of Jesus in the stormy seas, a teaching story from long ago, might help us understand why it is we might want to learn how to lean into the storms. You may recall this story. Jesus is out on a boat with his disciples. Many of them are people that fish for their living. They're out in the boat, but a storm has come up and he's asleep. And so when we claim and reclaim the story, not as a literal story, but as a teaching story, it's symbolic. And we're able to see into why it is that this little story was kept and has been kept for thousands of years. There's probably lots of stories they could have shared, but this was an important one to the people of that time. So there he is, Jesus, in the boat, asleep. Do you know this story? Some of you do? Good. Is that bell telling me it's time to get... No? Okay. So we've got Jesus asleep in the boat, and the disciples are afraid. And there's nothing they can do about the storm. And in that context, they wake Jesus up, and Jesus stands up and supposed to have rebuked the storm. And in the rebuking of the storm calms. And then Jesus is talking to the disciples who are still very afraid. So let's look at that. In our consciousness, creations of that which is called God, made in the image and after the likeness of God, it says in the gospel or the Genesis story of the Old Testament, we can be asleep to the power of God in our lives. It can be sleeping in our consciousness. The boat is a symbol for what carries us on the oceans of life, our consciousness. And in particular, our consciousness of God. And when that capacity in us is asleep, it's stormy. And we don't feel we have any power or control. But when we finally get to a place within ourselves where we turn to the power greater than ourselves, and we wake it up in our consciousness, the power to rebuke the storm has come to an awakeness within us. For me on that day, when the storm was happening with the bank and the employees of the region, there was that in me that rebuked the storm. Let's not give this storm the power to steal our serenity. We have that ability to say that when stormy parts of our life are coming up. Perhaps it's another obsessive thought. We all have them. We all do. Obsessing about how we're going to pay for something. Obsessing about whether we're going to be healthy enough to do something. Obsessing about the doctor's diagnosis. Obsessing about what our country is doing. Obsessing. But when this comes up, we have the ability to look at it and to say, you don't get to have my serenity today. God is my serenity. God is my peace. God is my calm, living through me. This is a point that Unity has held up for a lot of years, and New Thought, we're not the only ones. But if we have gone through experiences where we don't feel like God has any power, if God is all-powerful, then why is all this craziness happening? Why did this person in my life not overcome a disease when somebody else did? If this person that we call God is not a person but a power, and hasn't had the power to help me when I have succumbed to harming others, why would I turn to that power? But in Unity and New Thought, we have asked ourselves to see in the deeper implications of the teachings of the life of Jesus and others, that it must come through us. Which parent here would not want their child to know how to live and be an individual. We all do. But we must be willing to let them make mistakes. It's called free will. And we ourselves live with the power and the potential within us like a seed. But we have free will. And whether we will exercise that seed. So now I'm going to ask us to exercise it in a practice of nonviolence, a practice of going within in a meditative experience to look at that which could be released, that which has become hardened within us, that we feel like God has no power to help me deal with this. I did this in my past and it was awful and it was harmful. And it has not changed the fact that it happened. Let me read a story, though, from our wonderful Nagler now about a person, because he studied people that had done great harm, like Arno Michaelis, who authored My Life After Hate, the man that had, as a neo-Nazi, had been perpetrating much harm and much hate. But when he came out of that, he was able to create the launch the Forgiveness Project. Or another man by the name of Tony, who was vehemently anti-Semitic. But then he began to have doubts about those feelings, and he ultimately confessed his past to a Jewish person. And that person turned to him and said, Tony, that's what you did, but that's not who you are. I see you. One reporter observed that simple act of compassion cracked open Tony's hatred, cementing his new life. And it shows how potent such an act of compassion can be when it comes from another human being. So today, as we go into this meditative experience, you may not feel like you have anybody that in your life sees you, but I'm going to invite us to the practice that Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist who in the Vietnam War was no longer allowed to be in Vietnam because he helped people on both sides. He became a great teacher of nonviolence, Thich Nhat Hanh. And he writes that when we are able to have compassion with our own self, he said it's our ability is to be like the sun. He said, call it the light of the Godhead in you and me. When we have compassion for ourselves, like the sun, that which has become hardened like ice or snow in ourselves, that which has become cold or lifeless, begins to melt. Does it not? The temperature increases and it melts. So today, as we commit to healing and the season for nonviolence, we want to wake up the capacity of that light within. And in a moment, not yet Sean, but Sean is going to bring up a plate. And for our friends online, you will do this in your own way with your imagination. I'm inviting you to a practice of bringing the light of God in a very tangible way to that which you feel some pain about, some suffering. It might have to do with yourself, and I would encourage you to start with yourself. So it could be a mistake you feel like you have made. It could be that you're not able to somehow get yourself to even sit in a chair and practice meditation, which is the listening, right? You may have criticized yourself for that. Or you may have it out for God. Like, God did not show up when I was a child and I was harmed. And why would I? So we're bringing what's become hardened, our story that's hardened in us. And we will pick up a piece of ice and snow that's brought here, and we will bring to the very physical experience compassion for ourselves, care for ourselves. And we will feel the melting in our hands. So it's a tangible way to imagine that that which we call God is the light coming through as compassion right now, helping melt and loosen what has been hardened in our hearts. Does this make sense to you? You can come up if you want. You don't have to. You can be observers. It's okay. No judgment. Then when you go to sit down, and Jackie, we have a little song, and then there'll be some quiet music in the background. When you go to sit down, notice on your sheet that was handed out to you, there are some words that you can use. And what you will do is you will concentrate on those words, because what Gandhi and Thich Nhat Hanh and Jesus and all these teachers are saying to us is mindfulness. Become mindful of the power of God. Seek first the kingdom, right? Become mindful of it and stay true in a concentrated way. Just like sun concentrated will melt that which is really hardened and hard. And so when you go back to sitting down, you've got these words to help you. Just keep coming back to the words, coming back to the breath. Are you ready? Okay. All right. So we're going to sing a song. Let's see the words right up here. And then, Sean, as soon as the song is done, you will bring the plate with the ice pieces up, okay? Thank you, Sean. Let's begin. We can turn the lights down also. That'd be great. There's a blessing for you and for me, so great that the eye cannot see. It comes as a token of love and goodwill, 'tis sweet, sweet peace. Peace, peace, sweet peace. I rest in the silence and pray, giving thanks to God each day for peace, sweet peace. When I rest in His wonderful peace, all thoughts of the outer world cease. I dwell in the heavenly kingdom of God through peace, sweet peace. Peace, peace, sweet peace. I rest in the silence and pray, giving thanks to God each day for peace, peace, peace. I am purified body and soul, through infinite mind and made whole. I'm quickened and strengthened, at last I am free, through peace, sweet peace. Peace, peace, sweet peace. I rest in the silence and pray, giving thanks to God each day for peace, sweet peace. And in a prayerful way and in a sacred way, we call again upon our willingness to turn to the power greater than ourselves that we call God. O Father, Mother God, Creator of all, I pray that I might be more willing to surrender that which I have held to that is hard for me to deal with. I pray that I might be willing to have a faith as the disciples were beckoned to do, to follow in a faith that there is a power greater than myself. Oh God, that is you. To melt and to heal that which I hold on to that I don't know how to deal with. And in the very quiet now, in a prayerful way, I ask for that guidance that helps stay my mind on truth. I breathe in compassion for myself. I breathe out calm and release. And I ask myself for guidance. Is it for me to come forward and to hold this piece of snow and ice and feel it melting, that I can feel that there's a power at work here, not of my own making, thy will, not my will. Or I ask if it's my guidance to sit and just to be still and quiet and to hear these words in my mind over and over again. I breathe in the power that is God in my awareness. And I breathe out fear, doubt, shame. When you feel done, you can just set it back on the tray. There's napkins there for you to dry your hands. And together we rest in this power, this presence. It's okay for more than one person to come forward at a time. As you're guided, again, as you're guided. It's okay to come forward, it's okay to sit. You're listening within for the guidance within. If you're at home, perhaps you cup your hands and imagine that in your hands is that which had become solidified, gone to sleep. A question you've never been able to answer. A past experience that you know you can never change. But inside the compassion that you hold now is the love that we call God, coming through you, coming through me. And like the sun, with no judgment, no criticism, the power for all, working in all and through all. Always assuring that we can be free with the freedom of spirit. I breathe in the awareness that God knows me. I breathe out the old story of me. I breathe in the peace that is God. I breathe out all tension, tightness. I breathe in the warmth of the divine love, the evidence of compassion for me, accepting me, always accepting me. I breathe out self-judgment, self-criticism. I breathe in the peace in the midst of storms. I breathe out the misunderstanding that I have held. And in this now moment, I claim as Jesus claimed in the boat of life, the storms of governments and religions and more. I claim the living truth, the Christ within, the Christ consciousness, my serenity, my peace. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. And in this I quietly rest for a moment,